Have you ever crawled into bed feeling completely exhausted? Eyes heavy, body drained, and yet your mind just would not stop? You are lying there in the dark, replaying conversations from the day, mentally running through your to-do list for tomorrow, heart beating just a little faster than it should be. You feel tired, but you do not feel calm. That gap between physical exhaustion and mental quiet is not a personality quirk. It is not just anxiety. It is biology, and a specific hormone is at the center of it. Cortisol. The same hormone that jolts you awake in a crisis is the reason so many people feel wired at night even when every part of them wants to sleep. Here is what most people do not know. Cortisol was never meant to be a villain. It follows a precise rhythm throughout the day, a rhythm that your body has been following for thousands of years. In the early morning, cortisol rises sharply. It peaks within the first hour of waking, flooding your system with energy, sharpening your focus, and preparing your body to face the demands of the day. That surge is healthy. That surge is necessary. As the hours pass, cortisol is supposed to gradually taper off. By evening, levels should be naturally low, creating the quiet biological window your brain needs to shift into rest mode. By the time you are in bed, cortisol should be at its lowest point in the entire 24-hour cycle. That is how the system was designed. But for most people living modern lives, that design is being disrupted every single night. One of the most powerful disruptors is something you are probably doing right now without giving it a second thought. Light. Specifically the blue light pouring out of your phone, your laptop, your television, the overhead lights in your kitchen. When light hits the specialized receptors in your eyes after dark, it sends a signal directly to a tiny region in your brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, your internal clock. That signal says one thing: it is still daytime. Stay alert. When your brain believes it is still daytime, it delays the release of melatonin, the hormone that signals your body to begin winding down. And here is where cortisol gets pulled into the equation. Melatonin and cortisol exist in an opposing relationship. When melatonin rises, cortisol is supposed to fall. But when melatonin is delayed by artificial light, that natural suppression of cortisol gets delayed right along with it. Your body holds on to its alertness longer than it should, and cortisol lingers in your bloodstream hours past when it was meant to leave. But light is only part of the story. Even in a completely dark room, your nervous system can keep cortisol elevated if your mind is still running hot. Think about what happens after 9 in the evening for most people. You are checking work emails. You are scrolling through news feeds. You are problem-solving, mentally rehearsing difficult conversations, or lying in bed replaying something that happened 3 weeks ago that you still have not fully processed. Every one of those mental activities sends a message to your nervous system. It reads that signal as unresolved threat, and when your nervous system perceives threat, it releases cortisol. That is its job. That is what it was built to do. The problem is that your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a physical danger and a looping, anxious thought at 11 at night. Stress, rumination, emotional tension, and constant stimulation are all experienced by your body as variations of the same thing. Danger is present. Stay ready. Keep cortisol flowing. This is why so many people who seem fine during the day quietly fall apart at night. The daytime is structured. There are tasks to complete, places to be, conversations to have. That structure gives the mind somewhere to go. But the moment the structure disappears after 9 p.m., there is nothing left to occupy the brain except everything it has been carrying all day. And that flood of unprocessed thought and tension is exactly the kind of fuel that keeps cortisol burning when it should be fading. The consequences are not just a rough night. Elevated cortisol in the evening disrupts the architecture of your sleep itself. It keeps you in lighter stages of sleep, reducing the deep restorative stages your brain and body depend on. It wakes you up between 2 and 4 in the morning, often without any clear reason. It leaves you groggy and flat the following day, even after a full 8 hours in bed. And because you wake up without proper restoration, your baseline stress response the next day starts already elevated. The cycle builds on itself, night after night. It is important to understand something before moving forward. The goal is never to eliminate cortisol. That would be dangerous. Cortisol is essential. It regulates inflammation, supports immune function, drives your energy and motivation during the hours when you need it most. The problem is not cortisol itself. The problem is cortisol that refuses to come down when it should. The problem is a hormone stuck in the on position at the exact time your body needs it to go quiet. Regulation is the target, not elimination. And regulation starts with understanding the specific triggers that are holding cortisol high after dark: the light, the stimulation, the unfinished mental loops, the habits that seem harmless but are silently keeping your nervous system on edge. Once you understand why your body stays stuck in alert mode at night, you can start doing something about it. And that is exactly what comes next. So what does doing something about it actually look like? Not in theory. Not in a perfect version of your life where you have unlimited time and zero obligations. In the real version, starting at 9 p.m., with whatever your evening actually looks like. The habit is simple. It is built on one core principle. You are not trying to force yourself to sleep. You are trying to convince your nervous system that the threat is over, that the day is done, that nothing requires your vigilance anymore. When your body believes that, cortisol drops, melatonin rises, and sleep comes not because you chased it, but because you finally stopped blocking it. Here is how it works, step by step. At 9 p.m., or as close to it as your schedule allows, you begin dimming the lights in your home, not turning them completely off, just dropping the intensity. Overhead lights go off. You switch to lamps. You lower the brightness on any screen you still need. This single act sends a measurable signal to your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the internal clock you learned about earlier. Dim, warm light tells your brain that the sun has set, that the day is genuinely ending. Melatonin begins to release on schedule, and cortisol starts its long-awaited descent. 15 minutes later, you put your phone down, not on silent, not face down on the table while you occasionally check it. Down, away. The content that lives on your phone, news, social media, work messages, even funny videos, keeps your prefrontal cortex engaged and your threat detection system quietly humming. Your brain does not know the difference between a stressful headline and a physical stressor. It responds to both. So the phone goes away, and with it, you remove one of the most reliable sources of late-night cortisol activation in modern life. Now comes the part that most people skip because it sounds too small to matter. You spend 10 to 15 minutes doing something that actively engages your parasympathetic nervous system. Your parasympathetic system is the biological opposite of your stress response. When it activates, your heart rate slows, your breathing deepens, your digestion resumes, and your body begins to chemically signal that it is safe to rest. There are a few simple ways to turn it on. Slow breathing, where your exhale is longer than your inhale, directly stimulates the vagus nerve and triggers parasympathetic activation within minutes. A slow, quiet walk outside or even around your home does the same thing. Not intense exercise, just gentle movement that gently downregulates arousal. Or you sit quietly without stimulation and let your mind settle without trying to direct it anywhere. These are not complicated, they are not time-consuming, but they are physiologically precise. They work because they speak the language your nervous system actually understands. You do not need to do all of them. Choose one that fits your life and do it consistently. Consistency is the variable that matters most here. One night of this habit will take the edge off. 7 nights of this habit will begin to recalibrate your cortisol rhythm in ways you can actually feel. Most people who commit to 2 weeks report falling asleep faster, waking up less frequently between 2 and 4 in the morning, and feeling genuinely rested rather than just unconscious for 8 hours. The biology moves faster than most people expect when you stop fighting it and start supporting it. Now let us talk about the mistakes, because people make them and they quietly cancel out everything else. Bright overhead lights after 9 p.m. This is the most common one. People do every other part of this routine and then stand in a harshly lit bathroom for 10 minutes before bed, which resets the light signal and delays melatonin all over again. Warm, dim light matters all the way to the moment you close your eyes. Intense exercise in the evening. Exercise is one of the best tools for stress regulation overall, but vigorous training after 8 or 9 p.m. elevates cortisol, raises your core body temperature, and increases arousal, which is the opposite of what you need in the 2 hours before sleep. Move that workout to the morning or early afternoon if you can. Late caffeine. Caffeine has a half-life of roughly 5 to 7 hours. A coffee at 3 in the afternoon is still partially active at 9 or 10 p.m. It does not just affect how awake you feel. It directly blunts the adenosine buildup your brain depends on to generate sleep pressure. If sleep is struggling, caffeine afternoon is worth reconsidering. Trying to process major emotional or logistical problems after 9 p.m. Your nervous system cannot distinguish between a genuine crisis and a mental loop. If you sit with unresolved tension, your body stays in mild threat mode. Some people find it helpful to spend 5 minutes earlier in the evening writing down what is unfinished, a brief brain dump so the mind releases the task of holding it through the night. As for personalizing this routine, that is encouraged. The core purpose is to reduce stimulation and signal safety to your nervous system. How you do that can shift based on your life. Some people add light stretching, some people make herbal tea and drink it slowly in a quiet room. Some people read physical books under a warm lamp. The format is flexible. The function is fixed. Dim the light. Step away from stimulation. Activate the parasympathetic system. Give your body the biological permission it needs to let cortisol go. The science behind this is not complicated once you understand it. Your body wants to recover. It was built to recover. The only thing standing between you and that recovery most nights is a handful of inputs that are telling your nervous system the wrong story about what time it is and whether it is safe to rest. Tonight, starting at 9 p.m., try it. Just one night, dim the lights, put the phone away, breathe slowly for 10 minutes, and notice what your body does. Then, do it again the next night. Sleep is not something you achieve. It is something you allow. And now, you know exactly how to get out of the way.